This is The Trend, where you'll get enlightened perspective on trending news and topics with amazing commentary. I'm your host, RTL Faith. Welcome to the podcast, and as always, we breathe the message here that we are here to spread discussion, debate, solution, and overall compassion. What does it take to be a comedian in 2022? That is the question we're going to be answering in today's podcast episode, as we have a very interesting topic in terms of comedy, being a comedian, and all that information. Before we dive into that, I'm going to read off a comment about something that I posted a while ago. It's actually from a guy that I went with college with. He commented on one of the clips I posted on Instagram, and he said, in regards to the situation regarding Texas passing a censorship law, they're passing one to potentially sue a social media company if they try to ban or censor different political views, different views in general. And he responded, "They just don't understand how these algorithms work. This same thing happened when a group of old white conservatives tried to grill Sundar Pichai at a hearing, and he basically put them in their place, essentially saying bad ideas get shared around less." That was his comment. I thought it was a very interesting comment. There's some things that I agree with there in terms of like approach, but respect, appreciate you, my guy. So we're going to dive into today's episode, and I'm going to introduce our guest here. He's a comedian. He's a comedian magician, stand-up comedian magician. Let me say it right. And Danny Whitson. Whitson? Did I say that right?
Yes, sir. Whitson. Yes.
All right. Go ahead. Introduce yourself. Tell them what you're about. Tell them what you do.
Well, my name is Danny Watson or Winston or however you want to say it. No, people have screwed it up my whole life. But no, Danny Whitson. I'm a stand-up comedy magician. Actually from Knoxville, Tennessee. So, I've been performing for probably close to 20 years now. Overall, it's freaking crazy.
Okay. You also, I saw that you were at a podcast as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm also a host of my very own podcast called the Abracadam Podcast, which can be heard on all platforms as well. Yes.
All right. Excellent. So, you have a lot of experience in the comedy aspect and the comedy shows and all that stuff. And I'm very interested to hear about your experience of a conversation you had with a person that you completely disagreed with. This was a person who disagreed with everything that you were talking about. So we're going to talk about that conversation later on in the podcast, because, people need to hear how to handle these type of conversations, or at the very least, look back on it and see how you can change how things went. So we'll touch upon that, of course. So let's start off with trending topics. And this not relatively recent, but this was still trending. It was still very important. And there's kind of two here. First thing is Andrew Schulz. I know you have heard of Andrew Schulz and Dave Chappelle, of course.
Absolutely.
Amazing comedians. Very funny, both of them. And the thing with Andrew Schulz is the situation that he did is, apparently he started his own show with his own dime after the network wanted him to take out jokes and censor him a little bit. And he was like, heck no, I'm not doing that. And that kind of falls in line with the Dave Chappelle situation, because a lot of people were trying to cancel him because of his comedy special on Netflix. And they were mad about some trans jokes he was making. They tried to take him off Netflix, try to cancel him. And Netflix actually said, no, we're not doing that. So those were crazy situations that talked about, hey, this is how you're supposed to be. And both comedians like, no, I'm going to do it my way because comedy's comedy. So what do you think about those circumstances?
First of all, I think it's awesome what Andrew Schulz has done. And a lot of people have went that direction with just putting their special out on YouTube. And Andrew Schulz is good enough to where because if you've seen Andrew Schultz's work, it's top notch. It's amazing, hilarious.
Yeah, I just actually watched the entire special yesterday.
And yeah, he's at the top of his game right now. So he he was able to tell Netflix to go kick rocks. You know what I mean? Now, granted, I'm not going to say every comic that if they got offered a Netflix special deal and Netflix said, "Hey, I want you to, take this out, take that out." I'm sure some of them probably would go that route. But I'm not a fan of censorship, especially I mean, what people don't understand with comedy is in comedy, no topic is off the table, and anything can be funny. Okay, anything can be funny. Now, keep this in mind, though: not everyone can make everything funny. So there's
Good
skill
point.
levels to stand up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have, like, if you've ever, ever built up the courage just to go sit and watch an open mic, you've probably heard some of the most offensive, horrible, non-funny garbage you've ever heard in your life. Because a lot of people, when they be starting out, they all want to try to be shock, or they all, and they don't understand yet. You don't have the skills yet to talk about that topic. Wait till you, get better, then you can move on. Somebody like Andrew Schultz, he's at that skill level and he can make those topics funny.
Yeah. I definitely noticed that when I watched his special, and I've seen clips of Andrew Schultz here and there, mostly due to like TikTok or YouTube clips. Obviously, he has his own podcast, I think, Flagrant,
Oh yeah.
and that with his interviews, those are hilarious. He never holds back. And then watching the specials, like, yo, this is funny. I'm actually laughing out loud. This is hilarious. And I remember one scene where he went to this couple. He was talking to them, and one woman was like, "Okay, I'm not feeling that joke." And he came back to her. He's like, "You were feeling it," and then it kept on going. And then eventually started laughing. It was like, he's just a funny guy. He's talented. He knows exactly how to do what he's doing.
And you know how you mentioned now Dave Chappelle, on the other hand, in my opinion, right now, Dave is the best comic working in comedy right now. And now, I mean, everybody these days want to slap the word goat. We throw that on everything now, and then
Very
we
true.
overuse that label so much. So I'm not going to throw that label onto him, because no disrespect to people like Pryor and Carlin and people like that, but Dave is at that level. And you also got to think, Dave took a lot of time off,
Right.
and I'm sure he was writing. I'm sure he was, polishing up his skills. And the thing that annoyed me about the whole Dave Chappelle thing is you had the trans community attacking him, and they had never seen the special.
Yes.
And if anybody had watched his special, you would know he wasn't attacking the trans community. He was telling a story about a trans friend that he had that he was helping. So I mean, I've got nothing for those kind of people that want to jump on judgment and you've never even given a chance or even listened. I mean,
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. You see it time and time again where people just hear a name and they're just angry, and then you ask them why you angry. He's like, I don't know.
see, those
It's
people are no different from the people who they hate. That's what's funny about it. Is like, you guys are acting just like these idiots. They
exactly
act the same way. So I mean, and the key component, the common denominator that we all have here is we're all humans. And
facts.
and people are, I'm not going to cuss on here, but people are jerks. So
Very, very
we
true.
ruin everything,
Very
RTL. We
true.
ruin everything.
People can be very brutal, very mean, and I saw a video, and they were talking about the left and the right, and they're talking about differences of opinions. And one guy said something very interesting, and it didn't change my perspective, but it elaborated a little bit more. And he basically was like, "You got to think of it like this: these people, they genuinely think what they say and what they do is right. It's helping people. It's good." And it's a very interesting perspective because, like, if someone is generally just a bad, evil person, then it's like it's easy to condemn them, right? But when
Mhm.
someone who thinks they're doing good, who thinks they're really helping, then they'll never see themselves as the bad guy. They'll never do it. So
No, nobody. Yeah, nobody wants to look at themselves as the bad guy. Like that's what when you have an argument, you have your stance. You're like, I'm right. That person's a jerk. I mean, I think that's human nature. That's what we do.
right,
And the thing I love about this podcast, and the thing I love that you promote, is you promote conversation, and conversation is the key component. That's if because this side thinks, well, this is how it's always been, and this is how I want it to be, because that's what it is. That's what's right, and then you got this side over here that's like, well, no, it's time for a revolution, time for us to stand up and change these bad things. Well, these people never view those things bad, and but if you guys don't talk, no one's going to know.
exactly.
So, and and to be honest with you, man, I mean, like, social media, they say it's supposed to bring us together and connect us, but I think in most cases it's just divided us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, but at the end of the day, it's never going away.
oh
We
no,
have to learn how to adapt to it 100%, and those are the essentials of adaptation. I think is lost on people now. I actually do think a lot of people in the newer generations realize that social media is kind of messed up. Um, but I think it needs to be arguably taught even in schools. Hey, this is how you should be on social media. This is how you should interact with people. This is what it's doing to your brains. This is how it's affecting you. These type of things in terms of how it affects people should be noted, and it should be common knowledge. But yeah, I definitely think it is lost as of right now.
well,
Um,
there was a pro. Okay, like the pros to social media, like what Andrew Schultz can do right now with YouTube, or
right.
any type of artist that wants to get their stuff out in the world can bypass gatekeepers in that area. Okay, now, I think also though, uh, especially the younger generation, your Gen Zers, they're going to have a whole new look by the time they're 45 years old on social
Facts.
media. And
Yeah.
this is something that people don't talk about. Like with them, is they're the first real generation that no one ever asked their permission to plaster their baby pictures and everything and their images all over social
Yeah.
media, all over the world. You know, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, I don't have. There's a ton of pictures that will never see the light of day on social media of Danny Whitson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if the only way you're going to see those pictures if you look through an old baby album or something. But so I don't know, man. A lot's going to be different with the new generation. And I say new generation, I sound like that old man, but and a lot of people also, I got to get this out too while I'm talking about them. A lot of people say, like, I'm a Gen Xer, and you have
Right.
people who say, oh man, these kids these days got it made, man. You know what, dude? I don't say that, because in my day, like, a bully in 1988 was a real dude standing there in front of your face. You popped him in his mouth and he went on.
Right.
But now these kids deal with bullies, hiding behind a screen, and there's no consequences to their words and stuff that they say. Things are tougher on these kids, and also every dumb thing you've ever done being documented. Man, it's tough.
That is very true. And yeah, last point before we move on is it's it's hard for the newer generation. Obviously, they don't have the physical labor and work that a lot of the prior generations have. But it's very apparent. People talk about it all the time, but it's not nearly as important as it should be. And that's mental illness. People are
Yeah,
confused. People are misguided. People have very little role models. Like, the mental part is much more impactful than the physical part, because you can react to doing some very dangerous things, very evil things, very dangerous things to yourself. Like, that's a huge part of this, how social media technology has really impacted this newer generation. Sure, they got a phone and they can watch YouTube all day, but what they're absorbing and what they're doing all day tends to a lot of the time be very negative to their psyche if not taken care of properly. So
I
that's
agree 100%.
yeah, that's something that I preach multiple times. I even said this that when it comes to mental health, a lot of people it should just be standard how you see a physical doctor to get a physical checkup. You should see a mental doctor to get a mental checkup. At this point, it should be a standard. It should be very popular. It should be commonplace for a lot of people because more and more mental illness problems all across the board. But all right, let's move on to the main topic, of course. So we're going to be talking about comedy a little bit more essentially. And first thing, how did you get into comedy? How did you get into magic? Tell us.
Okay. Well, it all started. I got bit by the spider. No, I'm just kidding. The my uncle's basement. No, okay. Serious time. Here we go. Serious time. All right.
Gotcha, gotcha.
The the anyways, actually, man, I started out in magic first. I was kind of a late bloomer for a magician because most magicians, they get like a magic kit when they're 10 and they're like, oh, I love that. I didn't have that crap. I grew up in the ghetto. So, I didn't get presents, but, but my dad was always a prankster. And so I always kind of had that nature. But I probably got into magic when I was about 18. And a magician just fooled my brains out, walked into a trick shop. And for you Gen Zers, that's called like a magic shop where they used to sell magic tricks and face to face. I don't want to do that crap. Sorry. Sorry, Gen Z. I'm not that guy. Anyways, but
Real quick, Chris Angel or what's his
David
name?
Blaine.
David Blaine.
David Blaine all day. But here's the thing. I don't want to knock Chris Angel, even though I don't know the guy personally. I've never met the guy. I know people who know him very well. So I don't want to, deuce on him too hard, but just not my style.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
David Blaine is an icon in magic. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I met him, and if you get an opportunity, I strongly go see his stage show. It's absolutely amazing. David Blaine, I love David Blaine. But started out in magic, self-taught pretty much, learned through books, and then till I got up enough nerve to street perform. And that's where if you've seen a busker in any big city anywhere, you set up and you do, magic, build an audience, and then hope that they pay you afterwards. You're working for tips. But there's where I kind of learned how to engage an audience and learn how to really, you learn a lot on the streets. There's a saying that if you can perform on the streets, you can perform anywhere. And that's true. But as you can tell, I'm a very pasty redheaded man. So the outdoors is not my friend. So I decided I wanted to move into the comedy club. So our local comedy club at the time was a place called Side Splitters Comedy Club. And I showed up to the open mics. At first, I showed up as the magician. I'm sitting there doing tricks, and people were liking it, but the other comics were kind of like, "That ain't comedy," And so I got to looking, and I was like, well, you know what? You're right. The only way I'm going to learn stand up is to do stand up. So I had to put the tricks down and stand on stage and bomb and go through the process of comedy. But eventually I got good enough to where the club made me one of the house MCs. So I got to MCs all the main shows and work that and get better each night. And then from there, I actually struggled for a little while, RTL, with giving up magic completely and just doing just stand up. But I looked back and I was like, well, I worked so hard on magic all those years.
Right.
And I mean, literally, you stand in front of a mirror and you practice something for hours so no one will ever know. I mean, think how insane that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus usually when you practice something, it's to show everyone, So I decided, no, I'm not going to give up magic. I'm going to make both of these work. And a lot of people think that comedy and magic go hand in hand together. Actually, they don't. Because good comedy is telling the truth and good magic is no other word but bullshit. So I mean,
Fair
and
enough.
so making those two work was a challenge, but I figured out how to do it. And now my show is a mix of stand-up comedy. It's my stand-up. It's also magic, strong magic, mind-blowing magic, and I even throw some props in there, man. I'm prop scum too, baby. So it's just a big combo of everything.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, when it comes down to it, I'm a big fan of comedy myself. I definitely like comedy. I like to see comedy shows here and there. I've watched quite a bit when I have time. Just recently watching an Andrew Schultz special for the very first time. Hilarious. When I'm laughing out loud, then I know you're hilarious. So the dude is hilarious. Obviously, I've watched Kevin Hart, who has in like the last 20 years or last 10 years at the very least. Dave Chappelle. I even touched upon, watched some Jeffrey. No, I almost, for some reason, I almost said Jeffrey Dahmer. And
This is the trend, baby, and we know what's trending right now on the Netflix. Okay, so
very true. A lot of people have been talking about that. A lot of people are upset about it as well. I already knew about Dahmer before the Netflix thing, and then
oh
he
yeah.
got a Netflix thing. I was like, really? Okay, interesting.
Well,
And
you know what? The talk on that topic real quick, real quick. Uh, dude, I'm always kind of weirded out about. You know what, man? And not to be a Debbie Downer, okay, or a
yeah,
Dahmer Downer, or whatever you want to call it. The he first of all, Jeffrey Dahmer was a piece. Okay, he's not a good human being. He got what he
facts.
deserved in prison. By the way, all of them should have got that. Gacy, Bundy, they all should have went out the way Dahmer went. Okay.
I actually have no idea how Dahmer went.
Oh, bro, look it up. It's brutal.
I
He
can
he
imagine. I can imagine it, but yeah,
he was killed in prison. Another inmate got him. Let's just say that he
I
got
can
him
imagine.
good.
Yeah,
Got him good.
deserved
Uh,
it for sure.
he did so. But the thing that grosses me out a little bit, and don't get me wrong, man, don't get me wrong. I have interest in serial killers because I watch the crap, and I tell, and I'm even going to say this here so the whole world can hear me say this. But I could be a Dexter to serial killers. You know what I'm saying? Like I would never harm a fly except a serial killer. I look at them and be like, dude, I could pull the trigger, bro. I could plug it in because what people don't think about, like whenever Ted Bundy was trending and John Wayne Gacy was trending, what people never think about when they watch this for entertainment is that there's real victims. There's real
Yes.
families who relive these things every time they are aired. I don't do Dahmer jokes. I think it's hacky. I don't do serial killer jokes. I think it's hacky. And you see the memes on Facebook, and I roll my eyes every time. Probably the grossest thing, though, I've ever seen in my life, bro. And I got to say this, and this will blow your mind when you really think about it. I was doing it was like a horror convention. They had booked me to do my comedy magic act, and I was doing, and there was this dude, and he was selling like all these horror action figures.
Right.
Well, he also had serial killers.
Mm.
Jeffrey Dahmer, action figure serial killer, Ted Bundy, and probably one of the most disturbing was like a JFK with half his head blown off. Dude, it was just I was like, you know,
That,
these people have families, dude. It's one thing if it's like a, Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers, somebody's not real. But so back on the Dahmer thing with Netflix is that what people got to remember, because you see now you're starting to see all these dumb jokes and dumb memes. And I'm like, man, what's sad is that those are real people that he killed. That guy's a monster,
yeah.
bad guy. Anyway, sorry, man. I had to hop on that soapbox, hop off.
I'm not mad at it, and I 100% agree because a lot of these victims actually were not told about the Netflix situation. They weren't informed about it. And if you're doing something like that, you're reopening old wounds. Then they deserve that courtesy. And another part about it, which is very true, ladies, is they romanticize these serial killers a
Bro,
lot.
Ted Bundy, man. Dude, Ted Bundy actually got married to a lady, had a baby. She had she had his child. And I mean, Ted Bundy was as close to Michael Myers as you could get. I mean,
Yeah.
Bundy was like the only dude. He murdered people and then went 3 houses down the road and murdered some more. All right. I mean, serial killers usually they hop town once, not Bundy. I mean, man,
Yeah.
they had his Volkswagen up here in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, at a museum to where you could go see it. And I'm like, man, dude, come on.
Yeah. He's cemented in history, and people argue, you need to preserve history. And honestly, you got a point in terms of like knowing about these guys, knowing how they operate is good knowledge for what people should stay away with. But a lot of things in terms of serial killers is also you need to consider. A lot of these guys look like normal people, so it's
Oh
always
yeah.
hard to tell. Like, are they really? It's like you'll never truly be able to tell in those situations.
You,
Um,
you
but
know, with
go
on
ahead.
a political topic on that, since you brought it up, I gotta, we'll say it.
Hey, go for it.
Uh, I had one person one time. Okay, we were talking about this. Isn't the discussion that we're going to talk about later, but I got this was a disagreement. I have a lot of disagreements. But she was like, most of your serial killers are like something 30-year-old white men, blah blah
Oh,
blah blah.
yeah.
And I was like, well, technically yes, but you know why we don't see a lot of black serial killers? You want to know why? It's because the police department don't do a thorough investigations in the ghettos whenever they find murdered victims laying there in an alley like they do versus some other situations. So there probably there probably is more black serial killers out there, but you just would never know it.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
gotta take things into context. Like a lot of these guys, if they're like white, they typically are solo, doing their own crazy thing. When it comes to the ghetto community, they're probably in a gang, and it's completely different. The perception's a little different, and I do agree in terms of like you want to you won't see any type of romanticization of, or you won't even see like a black serial killer like that in comparison. But like I said, you will see a lot of other things that is going on that is equally as bad in terms of what's going on in terms of places like Chicago, for example, and that's a war zone
Chicago's
right
a
now.
mess right now. Yeah, Chicago's a
Chicago,
mess. The problem, I mean, I think there probably is. I mean, of course, there's black serial killers. There is, of course. Uh, but I think in most serial killers, their victims tend to be female or somebody who they can
right?
overpower. And the messed up thing, the thing that really bothers me is that there's probably been a lot of murdered women in the projects or bad neighborhoods that it doesn't get thoroughly looked into.
Yeah, I
So
think that's a very good point too, because a lot of
and
these other things are revolving in like a suburban area, so
absolutely,
obviously,
absolutely.
very different. I agree to that for sure. Um, but yeah, let's move on to the topic at hand, of course, and hopefully Netflix learns its lesson in terms of the serial killer situation. But hey, you hear it all the time. The last girl I dated, she loved that type of like Netflix serial killer documentary crime shows. Like a lot of ladies love that stuff for some reason. So hey, it is what it is, I guess. But it is what it is.
I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, I don't
We're not gonna
understand.
sit here and try to understand women, bro. You know
Yeah,
that's not gonna happen.
I'm good with my football every Sunday. I'm good with that. Um, okay, so you have a very extensive career in comedy and magic, and they taught, like I've read personally, we talked about beforehand, is you have a Guinness World Record for like a longest running comedy show, and I'm very interested in your take in well, let's start off like this. How were you able to retain such a long show period?
Okay. Well, let me clear that up real quick because I think it might be misunderstood a little bit. The
All
Guinness
right.
World Record, I was a part
Okay.
of the longest running comedy show. So what they did, and to kind of break it down real quick. Now, granted, I've been doing my show for a long time too. All right, but I'll clear that up. I'm sorry about this.
No worries.
That record was set in 2015, and it was in Nashville, Tennessee. And I believe the comic's name, who it was DJ Buckley, was one of the comics, and Chad Ryden came up with this brilliant idea to run the world's longest comedy show. and it literally, I think, was like 80, maybe 90 something hours long. This
Okay.
is nonstop. This is a comedy show nonstop. So we're talking daylight and just kept on going, comic after comic after comic after comic.
Okay. Yeah.
Just thinking of this, you're thinking this is crazy. So, but and I was a part of that. But there was comics from all over the world. Ralphie May, Hannibal Buress,
Okay.
a lot of comics were hopping on there to be a part of this, and it was, and definitely we wind up all breaking the record, contributing to it. And it was something amazing to be a part of. So sorry, man, I should have cleared that up, but that's what that is. And that was a great time. And definitely I'm going to throw it in there because, I mean,
Hey, I would too. Hey, you got a world record. You got a world record. Nothing to be
absolutely.
ashamed about, of course. But all
So,
right, fair enough.
but now as far as, my show in general, maintaining it, keeping it going, uh, another a big fat misconception, and I hate to, this is going to sound like I'm being bitter or and I'm not, but this is the realities of show business, period.
Right.
um Most people, like, you always hear you have to get lucky in show business, and you don't really realize the real truth to that statement of how very true it really is. Because I don't set new comics down and tell them in the beginning, like, all right, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get good enough eventually. If you stick with it, you'll get good enough to where you have an hour show, and then you'll start getting booked, but then you'll have to travel, and then you'll work, but you'll travel a lot, and then that's probably about it. And oh yeah, and then you'll probably die in a hotel room. So that's that's most. But if you get lucky, you might be rich. Okay, but of course, I don't want to tell people. I don't want to bust their bubble or anything. But that's the
Hey,
realities.
man, that's the truth. And I mean, people need to realize that just because you're doing something doesn't guarantee that you're about to be successful in it. Um,
Well, I mean, and also rearrange successful. That definition is because what I tell people is, I mean, now if I quit performing tomorrow, I'd be like, man, Danny, you did so much more than what some little ginger boy from the W streets would ever imagined. You know what I mean? Growing up,
yeah.
I feel like I am successful, even though I don't have a television show. I'm not on Netflix, not yet. But the I still feel like I'm successful in a lot of ways.
Hey,
So
respect.
I think that, because another thing you see, like, a lot of entertainers, like you mentioned Dave Chappelle, which
Right.
Dave will never be. Dave has hit a mountaintop to where he's set in stone. Like, he's
Yeah.
like when you look at music, you see Prince and Michael. Those guys never came back down the mountaintop. They got there and they stayed. But
Yeah.
most people in entertainment, eventually they do come back down. And they start playing, like how many times do you look on the comedy clubs and you're like, oh, Pauly Shore, yeah, I remember him from 1990s. They're coming back down. you
Yeah.
know all comics will do that, most of them. So success is, it's all relative, you know what I mean. you know
Yeah, I very much agree. And it's based on like your personal quota and perception of success. The when I say this, it's based mostly due to the current generation who's constantly on their phones watching a YouTuber like Mr. Beast and like I want to be the next Mr. Beast. I want to be the next phase. Like the amount of it's actually really funny. The amount of kids I see that put phase in their name, it's actually like, bro, you're not face. Like, it's,
I worried about this too, and the I don't know, man. I mean, there's times I've looked at stuff, and I'm talking comedy, I'm talking everything.
right.
Magic is overplayed, and it's in comedy and even music. I mean, and maybe this is my old man coming out, and complaining, because everybody gripes about stuff, after them too,
Right.
but I think that's one of the bad things the internet has done overall. It's oversaturated everything. Like, I can't even think of a better word to use,
Very
but it's
true.
everything is hoard out. Everything,
You
you know,
really, like you
even
said,
in,
you either
in
have to get really lucky or you have to do something that nobody and most things are done.
well,
Well,
things used to be, and here's something else is like, you talked about Netflix specials. First of all, I think probably about 75, maybe 80% of the comedy Netflix specials out are garbage. And this is the reason why. This is something
very
else that,
true.
like, first of all, people don't realize how long it takes to get an hour of stand-up comedy. Not only do you just don't write it and then go out and tell it and there it is. No, dude, you gotta work that stuff out. You gotta work those bits out, and that takes at least a year of constant work. Well, now let's talk about how great Pryor was and Carlin was, who kept constantly cranking out specials back in the day. Now Pryor had some writer staff, but still Pryor was telling those jokes. He was delivering it. He was doing it. And then you look at, like, but now everybody, you can name one comic, and I guarantee, one of your favorite comics, and I guarantee he's got 3 specials on Netflix in the past, 4 years, which
Yeah.
really, to be honest with you, and probably out of those three, one of them are good, because so you get a lot of that, I'm noticing. And then I think to be different in 2022, what year is it? Is it 2022 or 2023 yet? I don't.
Almost at 23.
Almost
Almost.
2023. All right. The but you got to, gosh, you really got to be different. And I don't know. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Oh
You
yeah,
just
you got to be one of a kind. And some people can do that. Some people can become Mr. Beast because Mr. Beast became Mr. Beast. So it's not. We're
it's
definitely
not
not saying
possible.
don't try. Do not try, but
Yeah.
also keeps your keep things. It's not just gonna happen. You got to work at it. You got to work hard. You got to be realistic. A
Well,
lot of different things.
don't you see on the thing that grosses me out on TikTok is, first of all, I hate TikTok. I'm on it and I hate it.
I'm
And don't get me,
50-50.
well, no, 50-50 is fair. Let me say that. I'm 50-50 because I'm not going to say and tell you that I don't look at some of the crap and send it to my buddies. And,
Yeah, I
uh,
do that too. Yeah, for sure.
I do that. I've got my select few that get the, videos sent to them. It's basically like constant America's Got Talent. I mean, America's Funniest Home Videos constantly, people doing dumb stuff.
Oh
And you're just,
yeah,
but, the other thing is, man, is there's so much of a lack of originality on TikTok because you're like, well, you're just ripping somebody else off and they're
yeah.
ripping you off,
I
you know.
absolutely hate that stuff. They're either doing the exact same thing because this other guy did it and it was trending, or using the same audio that someone else just did. It's like, this is boring. I'm just like, okay, this is
Yeah,
there's no.
I mean, it grosses me out, and I'm also, believe it or not, man, there we go. I'm getting a little tired of comedy sketches on TikTok. I see people can do them so damn well now. They do them so damn well, and you're just like, well, this is better than anything SNL's ever put out. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah,
don't know.
SNL's in the mud right now. That's
I think, okay, and I've became that guy, dude. Now I think Kate McKinnon, she left. She
yeah,
was like stupid talented, bro. But now she's gone, and now I don't even know. And I know Keenan is like running around doing this thing with, every 5 minutes there's like a open mic or comic that's on Keenan's search for the comedy do that thing that he's doing. I don't know, but I think SNL's went to hell in a handbag.
yeah, 100%. But
I'm
I agree with the skits thing. There's a select few that I really pay attention to. A lot of them make the same kind of jokes I hear over and over, but a few of them, and I laugh at a lot of different things. A few of them really hit it out of the park. It's like, okay, and they get the credit that they deserve. It's like, okay, yeah, you got it, you got it. It was funny. It was very funny, and definitely like that. To YouTubers too, because a lot of the YouTubers really started a trend of skits and comedy skits and popularized it, and good for them, of course. Um, but let's touch on comedy a little bit because that is the question of the current generation. What is comedy and how far comedy should go? So, what do you, in terms of comedy, in terms of jokes, how far do you think a joke should be allowed to go? And we talked about it a little bit, but like, do you really think that there's a joke you cannot tell?
Uh, Now, I mean, I think it's the individual. Okay, it's the individual. Like, there's jokes that I would never tell, and wouldn't want to tell. You know what I mean? It's things that I wouldn't, and like I said, there's confusion there too. Like, if I've never seen it, but I've heard of this, and this is with the Gen Z. This is God, boy, this is with some of them. If I would have seen this, I would have roasted them off stage. But I've seen, apparently there's white 22-year-old comics that think that they can be shock enough to say the N-word, you know? And to me, no, dude, no, no, don't do it. Don't do it. If you're thinking it, just don't do it, uh, that's so I've heard of those stories, and I've talked to comics, and they're like, yes, dude, I have seen that happen. I think that's dumb. Don't do it. You should never do that. And if you want to, and another thing I have an issue with, like a lot of, and this is mainly I've seen. Like I said, I'm gonna sound like the old man here, RT. All right, brother, but
Yeah, you're
this
good.
is I see a lot of young comics make the mistake of wanting to be shocking because their favorite comic, like Andrew Schultz, will say some shocking stuff. And they're like, God, I got to get on here and talk about abortion.
You're
I'm
right.
23. I don't know caca about abortion, but let's talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talk about what you know. You know what I'm saying? Talk about what you know. And if it makes somebody uncomfortable, it makes them uncomfortable. But if you talk about what you know, not what you think is going to be funny or what you think is going to be shocked. Talk about, that's what people want to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Dave Chappelle didn't go out there and just say, I think trans people are dumb. He didn't do that.
No.
No, man. He went out there and told a story about a trans friend. He talked about what he knew. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, and then you look at somebody with the skill of Andrew Schultz and Mark Norman. I don't know if you ever heard Mark Norman stuff, but
I've actually never heard of Mark Norman.
Mark Norman is killing it right now. It's probably the funniest abortion joke I've ever heard. Yes. And I don't think abortion is a funny topic, but it can be funny. And let me tell you this real quick, too. I got to tell you this. Now, you have heard of Doug Stanhope, correct?
No.
Okay. It's okay. He's like an icon. He's got his own comedy geek following. They love some Doug Stanhope, and Doug Stanhope is a master comedian. Okay. And at first I was never a huge fan. I was always kind of like, man, why do people love Doug so much? What is the deal? Until I watched one of his specials. And Doug has the ability to make you laugh at something that you do not want to laugh about. Sorry. You ain't no say so.
Yeah.
Doug Stanhope had me laughing at his mother's suicide, his mother's death. Didn't think I could laugh at that topic, man. Didn't think I could do it.
Okay.
But Doug tells this bit, and it is the funniest damn thing. And I was like, I get it. I totally get it. Now, but as far as topics, there's certain comics that, like I said, once you get the skill level to be able to talk about that topic and you feel like you need to, go for it. But if you've been doing comedy 6 months, bro, don't talk about abortion. Don't talk about these things because you're not going to have the skill level to be able to make it funny. And if you're some white dude, don't ever say the N-word. It's just common sense. Common sense.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like me and my friends, we make jokes. We go for it. We just say whatever. We know who not to say it to. Well, for me, I kind of make jokes on almost everything. I have a very satiric humor. I love South Park. That tells you all you need to know.
What South Park is legendary too for doing that, but those guys are brilliant.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly, brilliant. So,
Especially
and
if you understand the joke
people
that they're
don't
making.
exactly, and that's the other thing though too is people don't understand subtext. They don't understand that. That's why when most people do get offended at a joke, they don't understand what's really the joke is, what the joke is really saying.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you know, it happens a lot, unfortunately. But that's the case. And South Park sums it up. You
Yeah,
can watch South Park, and those guys don't truly feel this way, but they're making a point, another point that they're driving. So,
yeah,
and I'm totally like with your friends and your circle. You can, if you see an opportunity to make a funny joke, boom, go with it. Because they know you. You know what I mean?
exactly. You
Absolutely.
definitely got to know who you're talking to at the end of the day. And it's very interesting how comedy the is currently, because on one side you got a lot of people who are very sensitive on serious topics and don't want you joking about this and that. And on the other hand, people want the shock value. They'll just say whatever because they know it'll piss people off and get them clicks. So it's very crazy like how divided it is in terms of like both directions. And for me, when it comes down to it, like you said, there should be an understanding that only if certain people should be making certain jokes. One, because they probably deliver it and they say it in a way that is not, well, it's probably still offensive, but it's funny, it's creative, it's not there to just shock. So that's why that's very interesting. When it comes down to comedy, though, would you say, because it's very related to the argument of free speech, right? And I guess it's very related to the fact, to the comment I spoke about earlier in terms of free speech, and how Texas is making a censorship law to potentially sue social media companies who try to ban or censor people. Also, very related to Andrew Tate getting banned on every social media platform because of the certain things he said. Well, not certain because of who he is, and then uh, also it makes it very interesting because I get a lot of comments I've been getting about, hey, even hate speech should be allowed too, so you know exactly the people you should stay away from. So, in your opinion, because it's very related to comedy and making jokes and being allowed to say what you want, do you think people should be allowed to make, even if it's not funny, just be allowed to make any joke they want or say anything want
I
in
mean, people,
in
you
terms of
can
free speech?
free speech. You can say whatever you want. People do. People still do. They still say what they want. That's never changed. They've always done that. People are jerks. People have the right to be a holes. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like you. I can respond to you. I mean, unless you're one of these people that you like to put your thing on there and you turn your comments off. You know what I mean? Uh, but I mean, now granted, I think that there some things do need to be policed, and when it comes to if you've got like like how you mentioned gangs in Chicago, and if they were on the internet trying to recruit, kids or white supremacists trying to recruit, throwing their speeches out there in a way to recruit something like that, and they're targeting young children, you know what I mean? I think there's some issues there. You know what I'm saying?
Just to play a little
On
devil's advocate,
okay.
is that the responsibility of the platforms or the parents letting their kids getting influenced by gangs and white supremacists? Because people may argue, hey, even if they're not on social media, if you're not paying attention to kids anyway, they could just meet them on the street and they get recruited that way.
I put those people. I put those people in the same group as like pedophiles and bad people. So I can't put that response. Of course, there's responsibility to protect your children, protect your family, but at the same time, kids nowadays there's so much And there's so many predators of any type of anything out there just waiting to poison their mind and get them. So I do think there needs to be some type, and I know this is a gross thing to say. Most people can't stand this, but some type of regulation, something. Every other country in the world's got it except us, man. You know, I mean, there's some country. I mean, like, they ain't gonna let you. You can't look some stuff up in some of these other countries that you can in America. You know what I mean? So,
I definitely see what you're saying here. I guess the problem with our current society is finding the line, exactly where that line is, because then we got situations that is a huge feud right now in regards to Andrew Tate, where he got banned from all platforms because people don't like what he's doing more so than what he's saying.
and I'm not a fan of. I to be honest with you, I've only seen some things with Andrew Tate. It was funny, man, because I was had YouTube and his name was on the YouTube that I was looking at, and
It was blowing up. Yeah.
my 13-year-old daughter comes in the room, and she
Yeah.
looks
Okay.
at she looked at the YouTube. She goes, "Dad, you're not an Andrew Tate
Oh
fan, are you?
my
Please, God, no."
God. They
And
got the 13-year-old daughters.
and I was like, "What the?" It just kills me, man. These kids keep up with stuff. When I was 13, man, I didn't know any of this crap, dude. There's,
Same.
two things I was thinking of. So mainly one thing, but I don't get it, dude. I mean,
He's another one of those prolific figures that we talked about earlier that just his name incites rage. And you could ask, like, what did he do? Like, I don't know. He's just sexist. He's just a rapist, even though a lot of these things aren't true.
see, yeah, I'm not down with that. I mean, if he wants to be, if I let him have his page, let him do his thing, and if you don't like it, don't listen. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And
that's
he's a.
simple.
Go ahead.
And I mean, that's simple. Now, at the same time, though, who's the other nutcase that's similar to like Andrew Tate? I guess they say the Sandy Hook. You know what I'm talking about? Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Um,
gosh, how could we not remember his damn name?
I literally
Yes.
talked with someone like 2 days yesterday, and his name was brought up. What is this guy? It's I don't remember his
But
name.
okay, that guy. Anyways, he okay. It was comical a lot of times. A lot of the crazy, batshit stuff that he would say and do. But but when he did say the Sandy Hook stuff, that was that in my opinion, yeah, that was cringy. Somebody really should have, and I think the platform has the right if they're paying you absolutely to discontinue you.
Right.
Now, so kind of like what would happen with him, yeah, I can see Andrew Tate. Even though I don't think I'm a big fan of Andrew Tate from what I know of him.
Understand.
Uh, but I think the guy does need. I mean, you shouldn't take him off his platform just because you disagree with him. I don't agree with that at all. No.
Yeah. And I'm very concise about my opinions in terms of where people should be. And it's very simple for me. If you're trying to incite violence and hate, then kick them off. If you're not
Exactly.
trying to do those two things in particular, inciting violence and hate, then you have no right to kick him off. And I've watched quite a bit of Andrew Tate. I'm not 100% on his side in terms of the red pill community or whatever, but I've heard a lot of the things he said. A lot of them falls in line in a very traditional, especially like very wealthy men, traditional viewpoint. And most of the world thinks that way, if we're being completely honest. It's just like America is very progressive. Um, some may say too progressive, but we don't know yet. But regardless, like even if you disagree with him, just because you disagree with, and this is probably a big thing, probably why Texas did what they did, it doesn't give you the right to just. And they all kind of banned them all at the same time. So they were like, all the CEOs came together, like, yeah, let's get rid of them. And it's kind of sketchy. It's like, hey, it's kind of messed up. Kind of
Well,
messed
it
up.
makes you nervous when you see that stuff because a lot of people they don't think that, well, what happens when they do disagree with you? What happens whenever what you're saying is, part of the bad stuff. They can shut you down. And now, but isn't there is he shut down completely? Like, has everybody dropped him? Can he?
Actually, he's actually been so canceled that even Uber won't allow him on the platform or Tinder. So,
God.
like, the great thing, well, fortunate for him, he's a millionaire, so he doesn't care.
Oh
But
hell, that's a big point too. I mean, now cancel me all day if I've got a million already, dude. Then y'all can. I don't care.
yeah,
But
like, honestly, I'm also not big in the cancel thing. Like, the only people who can get canceled are people who let themselves get canceled. Like, once you start apologizing and say, okay, I should have, like, that's when you really are, like, canceled and you let the mob win.
now,
And, yeah.
I listen to and I know this is like the liberal community, hate this guy, but I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he has interesting guests on, and he's the most successful podcast in the world, and that's Joe Rogan.
Yeah, the
Um,
moment you said successful, we know Joe. We know
yeah,
Joe.
Joe has become like the new Johnny Carson for people in comedy. If you get on Joe's podcast, it's made your career. And any comic who wants to act like they don't like Joe Rogan and would say no if Joe asked them to come on, well, they're full of caca. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's but Joe, I kind of laugh at this because I was listening to a couple episodes and Joe was like, "Well, yeah, whenever they canceled me, Joe, they didn't cancel you, bro. Bro, they tried to cancel you. They made the
Yeah.
attempt with their little Spotify. Man, they can't, and you never did get canceled. They didn't come close to canceling you. So I think in what they did was really gross. Is they went and they went like head hunting for him, which to me that I find that really disturbing. It's like when they want to cancel somebody, the way they go after you is gross, dude. It's like a mob coming, with pitchforks
Yeah.
and torches.
It's very disturbing currently because there's no logic a lot of time, and sh- I I've talked to people before. Sometimes, sure, R. Kelly, get him out of here. Bill
Yeah,
Cosby, get him out of
yeah.
here. But people don't know where, again, the line is, and they associate canceling someone was he pissed me off. So once people are associating the just being emotionally pissed off or sad or I disagree, so I need to cancel you. They're being too reactionary, being too emotional, which is a big thing in terms of current people on the internet, mostly on social media, that I find very
I
very
hate it.
bad, I guess.
I hate those people, that you'll post a joke, a clearly this is completely joke, and there's always that one person that pops up with something like serious. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what is the matter with you, bro? What happened to you? Why? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I mean, now you brought up R. Kelly and Bill Cosby, and I got to say this: both of them are scumbags. The but this is an interesting discussion. Can you separate the artist from their
I've had the
crime?
discussion before. Yeah.
And well, I'll tell you this about Bill. Okay, now Bill is a piece. All right, he piece of garbage, bad man, raped a lot of women. But you cannot deny he is one of the funniest comics of all time. Bill Cosby himself, that right there, that special right there, is one of the greatest ever. One of the greatest ever. You
Yeah.
can't deny it. You can't deny it. And this is how talented Bill is. Bill was not only was he one of the best comics, apparently he was a damn good rapist because how many 18 women? It was that. So, but I mean, what I'm saying is, can you separate? And R. Kelly, I mean, gosh, what a freak show! But boy, he could sing. So,
Yeah, bro, you can't deny these guys are talented, and
but
I'm with you in terms of like, hey, I think you can. I mean, it's based on your own personal, like, your own preference. At the end, it's based on your own personal preference. But you can't be. I don't think you can be mad at someone else just
Well,
because
this
they
is
like the art.
you tell me this. You tell me this, RT. You tell me this. If they had a Netflix series about Bill, would there be a bunch of women watching that bad boy like, oh my God, we can't wait to see this new Netflix special about Bill. You know what I mean? Bill
That's actually very interesting.
Dahmer.
Like, you
Oh,
got Bill, who did very bad things to
but
women.
very
Then you
bad
got
thing.
Bundy and Dahmer, or Bundy mostly, who did very bad things to women. But it's like, okay, but I like Bundy though. It's like, what?
Yeah,
So
I'm cool with
where's the
Bundy.
line?
He murdered him, and Dahmer ate him. Bill drugged him. I'm not saying what Bill did wasn't horrible. No, it's absolutely horrible. But
Yeah,
I'm just saying, that's just weird to me. You know what I mean? It's weird to me.
it's
Um,
very weird. It's very peculiar on women's fascination with serial killers and that stuff. Very some weird romanticization. Again do not understand. But all right, so we talked a lot about what it takes to be a comedian, this current generation of comedy, the nuance behind comedy. I think people don't realize that there doesn't need to be a black and white. There's a huge middle ground. It's like it depends on the person, depends on the joke, it depends on your specialty. So at the end of the day, in terms of your own personal opinion, what do you think it takes to kind of be a comedian in 2022, knowing that A, there's a lot of sensitive people, A, there's a lot of people who take things too far, but I love comedy. I want to be a comedian. So what should I do?
I mean, just first of all, be yourself. Like I said, do what you think's funny, not what you think they will think is funny. Be you. So if you do have a dark sense of humor, then just be you. You know what I mean? And there is an audience. This is the bright side to the internet, is that there is an audience for everything. So there's people who will watch Andrew Schultz and cringe and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that." But then there's people like me and you that just laugh our ass off. That's hilarious. Uh, there's people who like you know several different styles. But the most important thing is you got to be yourself, man. You got to be yourself, and you got to do what you think is funny. So I mean, and cancel culture is real, but it's not as bad as what like you'll have a lot of your right that act like, well, you can't say anything anymore. You can't
Yeah,
even you can't call people the F word anymore, or you can't call gay people the this or that. Of course you can't, idiot. You probably should have never said it in the first place.
yeah.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no need to be a
So
jerk just to be a jerk. Like,
exactly. And they act like you can't say no. It's not that you can't say, it's that it's called growing. You should have never have said that. And then you have people, like I said, that are too oversensitive, and they look. You have a group of people who everyone wants to be the victim.
yeah,
Everybody wants to either belong, and this is something else that Dave Chappelle was trying to tell in his specials. Hint, hint, is that you have a group, you have people now who try to create their own victim, their own minority group. They're creating these things that really don't exist. And Dave was just doing some comparison, like this is what is real and this is what's not.
that also reminds me of a South Park episode, Safe Space. When Eric Cartman tried to create his own safe space. Oh man. And not only did they, kind of made fun of the concept of safe space, but they also told you how toxic the internet can be, and if someone keeps on coming through that with Butters, you borderline suicidal at the end of the episode. So it's like, hey man, they were twofold for that episode, but hey, they hit it on the park.
And also I want to put this out is like the one thing that hasn't changed. Okay, this is where people think that we've changed. Dude, people have been the same, bro, forever. Thousands of years, however long we've been here. We're the same, man. We're the same. My generation, Gen X, I came in the tail end of Gen X. And this is something that we like to do. Okay, we like to, when we are introduced to, when something becomes fad, when it becomes popular, we like to misunderstand it and make it cool. Okay, now my generation did that with gangster rap. All right, now don't get me wrong, I grew up listening to great music like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, but I also listened to NWA. I listened to Ghetto Boys, a lot of hardcore, gangster rap. And NWA's message was, hey, look what is going on here where we're at because you guys ain't talking about it. Okay. But pop culture took that and did something completely different with it. You know what I mean? Gang culture became, that was pop culture. I mean, people dressed, they wore flannels. Todd from the suburbs, you know what I mean, was so anyways, my point being is it was a topic that it did get attention because of that,
Right.
but it was misunderstood too. Now let's talk about what's going on right now with Gen Z. Let's look at the trans community because it's brought up, which is a real thing. It is a very real thing. Trans people, there are people born that feel like they do not belong in the body that they're born in. That is a real topic.
Yeah.
But now it's also became a fad.
Yep.
And
I
it's
actually
kind of a
it's
problem.
I've done it. I did an episode on when I season one, I guess, and I watched What Is a Woman, and someone was talking about how initially like she was straight, I believe, or maybe she was gay or lesbian, and then she went on the internet. She went on TikTok. She joined the LGBT community, and her whole identity got completely transformed. She turned trans, and then she ended up regretting it. So it definitely is becoming more and more like, well, some people say a religion, so to speak, where you join the LGBT community and now you're a part of that entire community. So yeah,
One thing I don't understand too about
yeah,
that real quick is I don't understand why they lump in sexuality with it, because sexuality and gender don't have anything to do with each other.
yeah,
It's totally separate. So I think that's kind of strange. But anyways, I know the original question, we kind of went off there a little bit, but to be a comic in 2022, be yourself. And I think as long as you do speak what you really believe, and also it's and know what you're talking about, though.
yeah.
When I write a joke, I go and learn everything I possibly can about that topic before I go speak on it. And but in this day and age, and if you're getting into comedy, then you're not going to be afraid to have your words and face broadcasted anyways. So yeah, my advice though is just be yourself and do what you think's funny, and who gives a damn who you piss off.
Hey, respect, respect. All right, so we'll wrap it up with your the conversation piece. So, do you have a moment where you completely disagreed with the person, and how did that conversation go?
All right, man. I have a lot of conversations, and I have I've got conservative friends, I've got liberal friends, and we talk, discuss, and a lot of these conversations that we'll just keep amongst your own little circle. You know, in my show, I don't get very political.
Right.
Um, now there's a few topics that I'll talk about and joke about, and but I don't get very political at all. But this is something I noticed, and this bugs the hell out of me. Bugs the hell out of me. Like a topic right now is systematic racism. You've heard
Right.
that, and you have some people that this is what annoys me about the left. This is what annoys me. They'll take something and blow it up so big that it
Right.
becomes imaginary. Like, we were talking about a dog, but y'all turn this thing into Godzilla. You know what I mean? It ain't Godzilla. Okay. And then you go to the right and you're like, hey, right, y'all believe in Godzilla. Godzilla's not real. No, Godzilla's not real. Neither are puppies. No, bro. Wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? No. Puppies are real. You know what I'm saying? So I have those friends. You know what I mean? I have a friend that
Yeah.
this side believes in Godzilla and this side don't believe puppies are real. So this really bugs me, and I noticed this because every now and then. Now I don't. First of all, I came out of I came out of a home where drugs. So I've seen firsthand what drugs can do, how they can destroy families. Not a fan of it. The pill epidemic, a lot of things that's happening. Right now with meth and a lot of those bad drugs.
Right.
But sometimes you see a meth head, and I'm like, God, there's a joke right there, bro, and I got to talk about it. You know what I mean? And I make fun. I do a meth joke in my show, depending on what town I'm in. Sometimes it's super funny, and then sometimes I feel like these mofos are like, he's talking about my cousin, some bitch. It hit home a
Yeah.
little bit. So, but this is my point. This is what. So I was noticing this, and I was like, wait a minute. How come it was okay to laugh about crackheads and something tastes so good it must be crack? All right, for years we could do that. But now we start joking about meth heads. Oh, wait a minute. Take it easy, Danny. That's messed up, man. That's addiction is a disease, man. Take it. All right. But tell me why. Why? Oh, I know why. I know why now. It's because Whitey is hooked on meth. Crack was a black people drug, and it was funny. Oh, yeah, it was fun. Okay, I get it. So I was talking about that topic, which that's a form of systematic racism. Ta-da-da! Anyways, I brought this up to my conservative friend, who I talked to him a lot on some logical stuff, because a lot of times he makes a lot of good sense because the left gets so damn crazy. And
I can co-sign.
I brought that up, and I don't know if it's right. He has been so anti hearing the word racism that he can't recognize it when he sees it now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love him to death. He's one of my closest friends in the world, and I love him. But he was totally wrong, and we're not going to see. I couldn't make him see my point, unfortunately. But that's what happens with both these sides, is that they wind up disagreeing so much that they become blinded to even see the right, the point of view. So, but yeah, we had that conversation. Never did see eye to eye. We never will, apparently. But at the end of the day, though, here's the other good thing. At the end of the day, it's, when I'm laying on my deathbed, I'm not going to open my eyes and be like, damn it, how come he didn't agree with me? You know what I mean? No. You know what I'm saying? We're all people. And I still love him. You know what I mean? I still love him.
Yeah. And I can reciprocate, because I have conversations with a lot of different people, left and right, for example. And I don't agree with everything they say. They say crazy things, in my opinion. And I'm like, hey, man, even if we have a genuine discussion about an hour, it's just like that we won't agree. It is what it is. You can't convince everybody, no matter how logical or emotional you may be, because sometimes people don't want to hear what you got to say. They want to stay, unless someone smacks them in the face like, yo, here. And then it's like, they still might say, nah. So it's it's a tough situation, but
it's almost like it has to. I think Chris Rock said that you hate people until they wind up in your family. You know what I'm saying? or like okay, for example, I have a son that's gay, and always been gay his whole life, born gay. Like whenever little kids run the bases, they all little boys have that little gay arm when they run the bases, but eventually it goes away. His never went away. You know what I'm saying? But been gay his whole life, man. And I wouldn't change one hair on his head. I love him more than anything, man. And he was born that way. You know what I mean? Gay people are born that way. And so when you run into somebody who, I think there's different types of discussions, like people, it's like, somebody didn't say this in front of me, but one time, but it got back to me when they found out I had a gay son. And it's like, I just don't know what I would do. Really? Well, hopefully you would love him. You know what I'm saying? And so, like what Chris Rock said, it's like, there's no reason in hating anybody because eventually they're just going to wind up in your family. So
That's very strong advice from Chris Rock, and kind of sum up the importance behind this is at the end of the day, like with my friends, with your friends, one important thing is we don't hate each other. You can have a conversation and disagree. Oh, that's crazy. You could disagree with someone. Yeah, you could disagree with a person and still like the person. I know the crazy property nowadays. You can disagree with someone, still like the person, have a good relationship, and you realize that behind ideals, behind notions, behind conversational topics and debates, it's a person.
Oh yeah.
And you like that person, or you don't like that person. You don't know that person. Doesn't mean you need to hate that person. You don't know anything about the person. So I think, again, a lot of people are losing the essence of compassion nowadays and are so quick to hate on someone who's just, hey, you conservative? I hate you. Hey, are you gay? I hate you. Nah, you relax.
They try to group them and label them into one, either if you believe in this or if you do this, then you must be this.
Exactly. And we constantly speak on, hey, don't stereotype, but people do it all the time.
Both sides do it constantly.
Exactly. Well, I think this was a great episode. Very interesting topic, and I thought not only did we get a good answer to the question that was asked, but I do believe the essence of people need to really understand that comedy, although it's subjective, you don't have to limit yourself. You just be true to who you are, and don't need to be the shock guy. You don't need to do that.
If you're not a shock guy, don't be a shock guy. Don't be who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Be who you are. Although not everybody can be like witty and funny, and if you're not that guy, you're just not that guy. It is what it is. It's fine. But yeah. Any final words? Any last things you want to plug in before we end the episode?
Plug, absolutely. First of all, you can check out show dates. I always got to plug some show dates, brother.
Go for it.
At DannyWhitsonMagic.com on my calendar. I upcoming shows. I will be in. I don't know if people are familiar with Johnson City, Tennessee, but October 14th I'll be in Johnson City, Tennessee at the Wallace Theater, and then October 22nd I'll be at Straight to Ale Brewery in Huntsville, Alabama. So those are two upcoming shows that you can definitely catch me at. And be sure to give me a follow on Instagram at Super Magic Boy on and Instagram, and then Danny Whitson Magic and Comedy on Facebook.
All right, so make sure you check out all that. Of course, all this information will be on my website, www.thetrendwithrtlfaith.com.
Can I plug a movie real quick?
Go for it.
Okay, and also I got to plug this movie that'll be out on Amazon and some of the other streaming platforms. I'm in a movie. It's called WJHC AM. It's a radio station name. It's about the end of days, the Y2K era in 1999. So it takes place back then. And I play the part of Pastor Sparks. I'm a faith healer who's obsessed with Street Fighter 2, apparently. But it's a funny movie, comedy horror movie. Check it out.
All right. Make sure y'all check that out. So y'all have a good one. Appreciate y'all listening. Leave a review, and y'all have a good one. Peace out. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast episode. Just a reminder to never miss an episode. They publish Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at 7 a.m. EST. So if you're driving to work or you're working out, tune into the podcast. Also consider visiting the website www.thetrendwithrtlfaith.com and leave a review so I can personally thank you for your support to the podcast. So again, thank you so much for listening. And remember that solutions can only really be made through proper conversation and discussion. Take care.